Hello, folks. Listen to my new podcast. The links are going to be below. Also, the audiobook of Letters to a Dead Friend about Zen is out now. I will leave a link to that too if you want to get the audiobook version. That's out. And remember to donate to me via PayPal and Patreon because that's how I make my living. So, let me talk a little bit about the audiobook of Letters to a Dead Friend about Zen because I think this is kind of cool. I don't know if anyone has ever done this before. I'm kind of cautiously calling it the first. I recorded this book live in front of audiences around the world. Well, around Europe anyway, and America. The book is written as a series of letters to my dead friend who I called Marky in the book, and they are written from different cities all over Europe during a tour of Europe. And I had this idea just like a week before or 2 weeks before I went to Europe that I had finished the book and I was going to be giving lectures in a lot of these places that are written about in the book. So instead of just giving a normal lecture, I'll read a chapter of the book that is set in that city or as close to that city as I can get and read that in the city in question. So that's what I did. And so the audiobook is all done live in front of audiences, and I think that makes a big difference in it. You don't hear the audiences very much. A couple of times people laugh at jokes or something like that, but I think the tone and the energy that comes through from doing it in front of an audience really changes things, and I think it's an interesting experiment in audiobook land. So go get that and see what you think. I just got back from the Angel City Zen Center where we had our usual Saturday morning talk, and today the talk was given by Eric Anderson, who talked about belief. And I'd like to talk about belief a little bit. When I first got into Zen, the thing that really attracted me to it more than anything else was that there was no insistence on belief. Every other religion I had encountered before that had insisted that I had to believe something. Like I had to believe that Jesus died for my sins, or I had to even go further than that and believe that everything in the Bible that was described, it was literally true, like literally 7 days of creation and literally a flood and all of that stuff, which I couldn't do. And then I hopped over to the Hare Krishnas, and that seemed pretty good for a while, but then I found out that they had the same damn thing. It was you had to believe that Krishna was actually a little blue guy who lived, whatever it was, 5,000 years ago in northern India and had sex with 1 million cowherd girls in a night or some crazy thing. I don't know if it was 1 million, but it was a lot of them. And that's an actual story from that group. I couldn't believe that stuff. So when I got into Zen and found out that there's no insistence of a specific belief, that was a great relief, because I thought this is for me. This is the thing for me. And belief is a kind of a funny thing because we have a lot of beliefs. All of us have tons and tons of beliefs, and they range from kind of what we normally think of as a belief, like I believe that flying saucers are piloted by extraterrestrial beings. That could be I don't actually believe that, but that could be a belief. Or I believe in God, or I believe that Jesus died for my sins, or something like that. Then we have beliefs on a more sort of practical level, and so let's talk about some of the really controversial ones, for Americans these days. Do you believe Christine Blasey Ford, or do you believe Brett Kavanaugh? Is it Brett Kavanaugh? I don't know if it's Brett, but anyway, the Judge Kavanaugh. Do you believe that? Do you believe there are two genders, or do you believe there are infinite genders? Do you these things become very contentious. And what I tend to do with beliefs like that is I look at the practicality of them. Like, does it matter if I believe Christine Blasey Ford or Judge Kavanaugh? Well, it doesn't change anything about the situation on the Supreme Court or how the events went with the hearings and all of that. So I might have a belief about that, but it isn't important enough to insist upon, so I don't get into it. Do I believe there are two genders or there are thousands of genders? Well, in day-to-day life, it doesn't really matter which of those options I believe. So I don't insist on them. So this is the way, I'm not telling you have to do this. I'm saying this is the way I manage my beliefs. do I believe that, what's his name? Epstein, well, I almost said Juan Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. If I say Juan Epstein, you'll believe that I'm as old as my bio says I am. Do I believe he killed himself or not? Doesn't change anything, so I'm not going to insist on it. I'll just keep those beliefs mostly to myself and not be concerned about them. There is another level of belief, though, that I think is real interesting, and this gets into the Zen thing. So this is where I feel like it gets kind of like something I want to pursue. Once when I was sitting in the room when Nishijima Roshi was giving a talk, he was about to go on a trip. I think he was going to Israel, but it doesn't really matter. But he was about to go on a trip to another country, and this was in Tokyo. And he said near the end of the lecture something like, I believe that I am going to board an airplane tomorrow, sit on that airplane for several hours, and then emerge from that airplane in a different country. But I'm not completely certain that's true. So that was hearing my Zen teacher, my trusted Zen teacher, say something like that gave me a sense that when we talk about beliefs in the Zen practice, we're talking about something much more interesting than believing Christine Blasey Ford or believing in Jesus or believing in the abominable snowman and aliens and ghosts and whatever. It's something that goes right to the core of what we do every day. You know, my own real existence on Earth, is it the way I think it is? Does it accord with the beliefs I have about it? And I'm talking about things like, are these glasses exactly what I think they are? You know, is this shirt a shirt? The problem with getting too deeply into something like that is you can drive yourself crazy. And this to me is a lot of the problem with what's being called postmodernism now. And I don't want to make myself into like a critic of postmodernism because I barely understand what I'm talking about when I get into these things. But I think they're calling it postmodernism, and part of what I'm seeing from the internets that sometimes falls under the heading of postmodernism is this idea that we just don't believe in anything. And everything is just in flux. But the problem with that is you'll drive yourself completely nuts if you can't believe in anything. You know, if you try to get into the mindset where everything is questionable. So even though I just told you that Nishijima Roshi didn't even necessarily believe that getting in an airplane and flying overseas was a real thing, I'm also telling you that he acted as if it was a real thing. So he brought his passport, he did the things, he did all the stuff, and he didn't protest against it, and he didn't kind of make a big deal out of the fact that he had some doubts about the general understanding of what's happening in the world. I only ever heard him mention this once. So when it comes up in the Zen literature, and you can find it in Dogen and you can find it in other places, this same sort of idea that I think Nishijima Roshi was hinting at when he talked about his beliefs regarding the plane trip to Israel, that's in there, but it's not something we insist on, So same as those beliefs that I have, those political beliefs that I may or may not have, and you can make whatever assumptions you want about those, but notice that I haven't told you either way. Because I don't feel like there's any great benefit to be had to the world or to myself for me to have a specific belief on a lot of issues. What I find a lot on the internet is belief is related to identity. So I identify as a person who believes Christine Blasey Ford, or I identify as a person who believes Kavanaugh, so that's an important part of my identity. So I'm planting a flag about myself here. So it's not really about whether I believe in it or not. I'm just trying to tell you or the world something about myself and what kind of person I am. So if I think it makes me a better person to believe one of those things than the other, then I'll tell you that, and I'll try to, whatever. The other thing about belief that I find is interesting is, for most humans, it's not enough that I believe something. I have to make other people believe it, which is another reason why people like to insist on a certain belief. So if enough people insist on a belief in the inerrancy of the Bible, then it will make a change in the world somehow. There's a lot of people who believe that. Now, to a certain extent, if a lot of people believe a certain way, that will tend to make them act in a certain way. And you could say that, for example, a lot of Christians will insist that if you believe in the inerrancy of the Bible, that will make you a more ethical person and the world will become a better place. There might have been a time and a place when that was true, depending on I'm talking about medieval times or something like that. If enough people were to believe in the inerrancy of the Bible, maybe they would act more ethically. But I think anymore we're kind of moving out of that world. And I think more and more our beliefs and what we do can be kind of compartmentalized a little better nowadays. And I think maybe this is why Buddhism has a chance in America these days, because although there are still people who very much insist that we must have a certain belief, there's a growing understanding that we don't have to have specific sets of beliefs in order to be ethical and to behave well and to be good people and so forth and so on. So, maybe Buddhism has a chance, but of course, most of the people who are the bigwigs in American Buddhism are doing their best to try to demolish Buddhism in America. But that's just one of my beliefs, and maybe I'll tell you about it next time. So, that's it for me. Have fun believing whatever you believe. It's about time to start believing in Santa Claus pretty soon, so believe that. And I believe that if you donate to me, I will eat better than if you don't, so please donate. Audiobook is available, and the podcast is up, so check that out. See you later. Bye.